2 weeks ago, a boat on Geneva Lake, Wisconsin, got hit by an estimated 100-mile-per-hour thunderstorm gust and capsized, and 3 people didn't survive it. That same holiday weekend, a lightning strike killed someone on a beach in Florida. Falling trees killed people in Pennsylvania and Illinois, and by the time it was over, 8 people were dead, and 18 more were injured from Friday through Monday, with more than 1,300 separate severe weather reports called in across the country. I'm bringing that up not to dwell on it, but because it's the clearest proof I can give you that this summer has not been messing around. And starting today, we're doing it again. A multi-day severe weather setup that's going to walk east across the country over the next 3 days, and by the time it's done, it will have put damaging wind, large hail, a few tornadoes, and a genuine flash flood threat in front of more than a dozen states. It's Monday, July the 20th, 2026. Let's talk about how this actually unfolds day by day, because the risk area is going to keep moving, and where you live determines which day you actually need to worry about. Quick refresher before I get into it for anyone newer to the channel. The Storm Prediction Center ranks severe weather days on a 5-level scale. Marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high. Enhanced sits right in the middle at level 3, and it means forecasters expect numerous severe storms, not just an isolated strong cell here or there. It's not the top of the scale, but it's high enough that it should change how you plan your day. That's the category we're dealing with in multiple spots over the next 3 days. Here's the 3-day shape of this thing in one breath. Today, Monday, the target is the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Tomorrow, Tuesday, the risk shifts into the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and parts of the Northeast. And by Wednesday, it slides again into the southern Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas, where the story stops being mainly about wind and starts being just as much about rain that has nowhere left to go. Let's take these one at a time. Today, the Storm Prediction Center has an enhanced risk. That's level 3 out of 5, up for parts of the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. The way this one is coming together is a little more complicated than a simple cold front sliding through. There was already a cluster of thunderstorms, what meteorologists call a mesoscale convective system, moving through far northern Iowa and west central Wisconsin overnight and into this morning. New storms are expected to develop later this afternoon in the warmer, more unstable air out ahead of that morning system, riding along downstream of a seasonably strong shortwave trough and jet streak. As that warm, moist air noses into Wisconsin, surface dew points climbing into the upper 60s to mid-70s are going to support a genuinely unstable atmosphere by mid to late afternoon. Combine that instability with strong, turning winds up in the atmosphere, and forecast soundings show an environment that could support a couple of strong tornadoes if the storm scale details line up. The higher confidence corridor for large hail and tornadoes runs from Iowa across Wisconsin and into upper Michigan, with the highest wind probability, 30%, covering that same stretch, and a broader 15% wind risk fanning out around it. Hail probabilities sit around 15% in that same corridor, and the tornado probability tops out at 5%, which, again, isn't a huge number on paper, but it's still enough that SPC expects at least a couple of tornadoes to actually touch down somewhere in that zone today. If you're in Milwaukee, Green Bay, La Crosse, Marquette, or Des Moines, today is genuinely a day to keep one eye on the sky this afternoon and evening. There's actually a second separate severe threat happening today, too, farther southeast, across the Carolinas and southern Virginia. That one's being driven by strong heating south of a stalled front, with dew points in the 70s and a lot of moisture loaded into the atmosphere, enough to fuel what forecasters call water-loaded downdrafts, basically storms that can punch out a sudden hard burst of damaging wind when they collapse. That window runs mainly from mid-afternoon into the evening today. Now here's the important part. This isn't a one-day story. As that upper Midwest system pushes east overnight, it's going to run into the next batch of heat and moisture waiting for it, and the whole severe threat essentially picks up and moves with it. Tomorrow, Tuesday, the enhanced risk shifts into the Ohio Valley, stretching into the Mid-Atlantic and parts of the Northeast. Think of southern Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, with the broader risk area fanning out toward the Mid-Atlantic coast and up into New York. An upper-level trough stays parked over the eastern half of the country. A surface low tracks up through Ontario into Quebec, and a cold front trails behind it, sweeping through a warm, humid air mass that's had all of today to load up on instability. Damaging straight-line wind is expected to be the main hazard, with large hail and a couple of tornadoes riding along, especially closer to where the surface low and front actually cross paths. If you're anywhere in that Ohio Valley to Northeast corridor, tomorrow is your day to have warnings turned on and a plan for getting to your safest room in a hurry. Then, Wednesday, the risk shifts again, this time toward the southern Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas, and the character of the threat actually changes. Damaging wind is still the headline hazard, but by Wednesday, this will be the 4th consecutive day that parts of this region, especially eastern North Carolina, from around Raleigh out toward the Outer Banks and Wilmington, will have seen rounds of heavy rain stacking on top of each other. That matters more than it sounds like it should, because ground that's already saturated from 3 straight days of rain can't absorb a fourth round, the way dry ground would. New rain just runs off, fast, into streams and low-lying roads that are already running high. Part of what's feeding that moisture is the tropical system that's been organizing in the Gulf this week. Even while inland, it's been pumping extra tropical-grade moisture up ahead of these fronts, which is a big part of why this rain keeps stacking instead of clearing out between rounds. So if you're in that Carolinas and Southern Virginia zone, I'd actually treat Wednesday's flash flood risk as seriously as the wind threat, maybe more so, depending on how saturated your specific area already is. Worth noting too, this isn't an isolated stretch of bad luck. Counting today, this is the 3rd enhanced risk day issued somewhere across the eastern half of the country in the past 5 days alone. The Northeast and Mid-Atlantic had one this past Saturday, and tomorrow's Ohio Valley setup will make a 3rd. When you're seeing that many level 3 days bunched together in less than a week, on top of a 4th of July weekend that was already one of the more active stretches of the year, that tells you the broader pattern across the eastern U.S. has been locked into an unusually active groove for a while now, not just today. Zooming out for a second, here's why this is playing out over 3 straight days instead of blowing through in an afternoon. The same upper-level trough is essentially parked over the eastern U.S. this whole week, and a series of individual disturbances, shortwaves, are rotating through it one after another, each one dragging its own round of storms along the boundary separating the hot, humid air to the south from cooler air pushing in from the north. Every time one of those disturbances rolls through, it reloads the threat in a new spot slightly farther east or south than the day before. That's the mechanism behind why this feels less like one storm and more like a slow-motion wave working its way across the map. I want to be straightforward about what's actually well supported here versus what's still uncertain. Today's upper Midwest threat and tomorrow's Ohio Valley to Northeast threat are both solidly forecast. Enhanced risk categories don't get issued lightly, and the ingredients behind both days are well in place. Wednesday's shift toward the Carolinas has good support too, particularly for the flooding piece, but exactly how far west or east the heaviest wind and rain sets up that day can still shift some as we get closer. That's normal for anything more than about 24 to 36 hours out, and it's exactly why I'd rather walk you through the pattern and the reasoning than hand you a single number and pretend I'm certain about it. So here's what I actually want you to do with all of this, region by region. If you're in the upper Midwest or Great Lakes today, get your severe weather alerts turned on now before storms fire this afternoon, and know that the hail and tornado risk is highest from Iowa into Wisconsin and upper Michigan. If you're anywhere from the Ohio Valley through the Mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast, tomorrow is your day. Treat damaging wind as the most likely hazard, but don't dismiss the tornado threat, especially if you're closer to where that surface low tracks through. And if you're in the Carolinas or Southern Virginia, don't let your guard down after the storms pass. Wednesday afternoon, with the ground already saturated, flash flooding can develop well after the thunder stops, sometimes overnight, which is exactly when it's hardest to see rising water coming. A few reminders that apply no matter which day is yours. Don't wait to hear a siren. Most severe weather, especially overnight, arrives without one nearby, and a phone alert with the volume up is often your only real warning. Know the lowest, most interior room in your home away from windows, and have a way to get there in the dark. If you're driving and you hit water over the road, turn around. You cannot tell how deep it is or how fast it's moving from the driver's seat, and most flood deaths in this country happen in vehicles. And whatever specific outlook or watch gets issued for your county over the next 3 days, treat that as the real current word. Outlooks like the ones I've described tonight paint the broad picture, but the National Weather Service's actual warnings, issued in real time off live radar, are always going to be more precise for your exact location than anything issued a day or two out. If you're in that Carolinas and Southern Virginia zone specifically, it's worth doing a couple of things today, before Wednesday's rain even arrives. Clear leaves and debris out of gutters and storm drains near your property, if you're able to safely. Move anything valuable out of a basement that's flooded before, and if you live along a small creek or in a spot that's taken on water in past heavy rain, have a plan now for where you'd go if that road became impassable overnight. None of that requires panic. It just takes 5 minutes today, while the sun's still out, instead of trying to figure it out at 2 a.m., Wednesday, with water already rising. That's the shape of the next 3 days. Upper Midwest and Great Lakes today, Ohio Valley into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast tomorrow, and the Carolinas and Southern Virginia picking up both damaging wind and a genuine flash flood threat by Wednesday, on top of rain that's already been falling for days. I'll be tracking this as it moves, and I'll let you know if anything shifts meaningfully from what I've laid out here. Stay weather aware, follow your local National Weather Service office for anything that actually gets issued for your area, and I'll see you in the next one.